On today's show, the Houston Rockets stunned the Boston Celtics with a Amen Thompson Kobe-esque game winner. Plus, Miami takes down Orlando in double overtime, but nobody's talking about their game tonight. We'll talk about Jimmy Butler and more on today's Locked On NBA Game Night. Let's go.
When that final buzzer rings, you know it's time for Locked On NBA Game Night. All the post-game reactions to every game across the league, every single night, with insights only the hosts at Locked On can provide. It's the true NBA fans' one stop for all the action. Every game, every night. It's Locked On NBA Game Night. Tipping off now.
Ba, 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 ba. Welcome, you're Locked On to NBA Game Night. My name is Nick Angstadt, host of the Locked On Mavericks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for being every day or making Locked On NBA your first listen today. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Super Bowl 59 is here, and there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. New customers can bet just $5 and win $200 in bonus bets if that bet wins. Download the app, head to FanDuel.com to get started. And joining me today on a packed slate of 12 games, as always, from the great Locked On Bucks. What'd you see in the NBA tonight, Camille Davis?
Some disappointment, some surprises. We had a little bit of everything tonight, I think, in this slate of games for the NBA.
Little bit of everything. Mentioned the 2 overtime game for Miami and Orlando. The Nuggets get shocked by the Bulls and they're crashing out over there in Denver. We'll talk about the Suns. Did the Suns take a turn today? We'll talk about our teams. Klay Thompson going off. We'll talk about the Sacramento Kings. They sit a player. Can I do my conspiracy theory music? I'm ready for it. We'll do
horse points.
Yeah. What is going on there? Why did that happen? We'll get into all that tonight on Game Night. Let's start with Houston versus Boston. The Houston Rockets get a big win against the Boston Celtics, a big confidence booster for a team like that. Let's hear first from our guy, Jackson Gatlin of Locked On Rockets.
Amen Thompson hits the game winner to cap off a career night as the Rockets beat the Celtics 114-112. What's up? This is Jackson Gatlin, host of Locked On Rockets. And man, Amen Thompson was sensational in this one. A career high 33 points to go along with 10 rebounds, 4 assists, 1 steal, 1 block, and of course the game-winning drive and shot. The most important sequence of the game, Rockets had a 13-0 run to respond to the Celtics when the Celtics went up 12. They had a stretch where offensively they hit 10 of 12 shots from the floor, and the Rockets responded in a big way, and it was capped off by Amen Thompson, who blocked Drew Holiday on one end, recovered the basketball, saved it into a teammate, and then on the other end of the floor, cut through the lane, received a pass from Alperen Sengun, and went up for a reverse layup at the rim to put the Rockets up 102-101. An incredible night for him. And oh, by the way, Dillon the Villain hit 10 threes, tying a Rockets franchise record, and was reveling in the booze at TD Garden, even doing a little dance at one point on the floor. Got into it with Kristaps Porzingis a little bit. We're going to have the full breakdown for you over at Locked On Rock.
You got to embrace the villain role if you are one. And Dillon Brooks, he's got to embrace that. But Amen Thompson, just an insane game. Jackson mentioned that one play to cap off that 13-0 run. He also had the game-winning floater where he just got into space. And the space, I think, was kind of the story of this game, is that the Celtics started guarding Amen Thompson with Kristaps Porzingis. And they just let Amen Thompson have the space. And they said, all right, bet you go ahead and maybe you'll take some shots, maybe you won't. He went 1 of 2 from 3, but only took 2 threes.
Right.
And one with his athleticism. Amen Thompson, the more I watch him, the more he's just super fast Ben Simmons to me. Like when Ben Simmons was really good. And that's it's a compliment.
It's a compliment.
It's not a compliment anymore with the way Ben Simmons' career has turned out, but it is a compliment about Amen Thompson.
It really is. And you see teams from every so often, like their game plan is like, hey, we're going to focus on these guys. And for the Celtics tonight, it seemed like they were like, hey, Jalen Green ain't going to beat us. Ain't going to beat us. If it's going to be Dillon Brooks and Amen Thompson, good luck to you. And as someone who covers the Bucks, who's been watching the Bucks for a very long time, sometimes it bites you in the butt. Like the Bucks had that exact same strategy in the playoffs against the Celtics with Grant Williams of like, hey, if we lose to Grant Williams, then so be it. But it's going to have to be him. And for the Celtics tonight, like they were saying, it has to be somebody, other than the stars. We wanted to be Amen Thompson. We wanted to be Dillon Brooks. And they responded. They responded in a big way. Amen Thompson made something out of the space that he was given. That's been a question with him. If he could have enough offensive game for when teams do try to help off of him, can he make them like regret it? And tonight he did that against the Celtics.
we've been doing these squad shows where we have a bunch of hosts from the West and a bunch of hosts from the East do a show together. And after the West one today, we were talking about Amen Thompson. Is he the best player on the Rockets? Because I think there's a world where you can talk yourself into just the insane athleticism, the playmaking, that he could be, just the defense. Like, he's probably going to make an all defensive team this year too.
I think I need to see a little bit more before I say he's the best player, but I think it's not unfair to say he's already their most impactful player because of what he does in so many different facets of the game. And if he has his offensive game going as well, like, it's different. But I think his ceiling is even higher than I initially thought.
Now, he also was helped by Dillon the Villain. 10 of 15 from 3, 36 points, which is a season high for Dillon Brooks. Also, the most he's ever scored for the Rockets. And 10 threes ties a Rockets high. He's had as many threes in one game as James Harden, Camille.
Now, when you look at the Rockets history books, you're going to say, like, James Harden, like, that makes so much sense. And then you're going to say, Dillon Brooks is going to be there forever. A career high, a career game for Dillon Brooks. And the Rockets needed every single point because they only won by 2. And he hit 10 threes.
Yeah, that was massive. The Celtics, the great shooting Boston Celtics only hit 15 threes, and Dillon Brooks hit 10.
It be like that sometimes. I'm shooting variances, man.
Speaking of those great Boston Celtics, let's hear the Celtics side of this from John Corrales.
Tough loss for the Boston Celtics here at TD Garden. Dillon Brooks hitting 10 of 15 three-pointers was the story of the game. And afterwards, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, both saying this is not what we expected. That wasn't in the game plan. But they did what they tried to do. They shut off some of the other main offensive threats. And what happened was Dillon Brooks and Amen Thompson went ballistic and killed the Celtics. Celtics were without Al Horford, Derek White, and Sam Hauser. Al Horford was a late scratch. So shorthanded, but look, I'm giving them credit for fighting to the end. This is not the same kind of loss that the Celtics have suffered over this up and down stretch. I thought this was just a tough game, losing to the second seed in the West, and obviously some mistakes down the stretch. The defensive miscues at the end were glaring. Joe Mazzulla took full credit for that mistake. The late switch, the miscommunication was tough. Obviously, the Celtics still have some work to do, but first game back after a long road trip, I thought that was a good fight, a tough loss, and if a couple of things just go a little bit normally, we'd be talking about a Celtics win.
But we're not, so we're not going to talk about the Celtics much anymore. So.
Sometimes you lose. Like,
I love giving John grief, especially when he's not on here. The Miami Heat beat the Orlando Magic in 2 overtimes. And Jimmy Butler was not in attendance because he was supposed to come back in this game. He was active. He was not on the injury report. He was supposed to come back from his suspension, but now he's serving a new suspension that is a minimum of 5 games in this one. Let's hear from Wes Goldberg about the game itself with the one without Jimmy Butler.
Well, the Miami Heat get the win here at Kaseya Center, 125-119 in double overtime over the Orlando Magic. I'm Wes Goldberg from Locked On Heat. The Heat needed this for a lot of different reasons. They hadn't won consecutive games in a couple of weeks before this one. And earlier today, it was announced that Jimmy Butler will be suspended indefinitely after walking out of team practice this morning early. It's going to be a minimum of 5 games. It's going to take it at least through the trade deadline. And so the Heat, a little bit of clarity, at least in the short term, as to where things stand with Jimmy Butler. Will he or will he not be a part of this team? For now, he will not be a part of the team. But they didn't need him in this one. They come back from 14 points down, tie the game in the fourth quarter, send it to overtime. They go to 2 overtimes. This was a Bam Adebayo masterclass. He was the star that the Heat desperately needed. A near triple-double, huge buckets, great defense on Paolo Banchero down the stretch. Tyler Hero was great. Duncan Robinson made big buckets. Nikola Jovic made big buckets. This was a team effort, no doubt about it. And this is what the Heat wanted to look like in a world without Jimmy Butler because of suspension, or maybe because he's not with the team anymore because he gets traded. Much more to come on Locked On Heat.
In a world without Jimmy Butler, Camille, is a Tyler Hero, Bam Adebayo team enough? And what is it enough to do?
It's enough to be in playoff contention for sure. I think they're going to need some more than just those two. But you can see in a game like this why the Heat are confident of building around those two going forward, where they're like, you know what? If we don't have Jimmy, we can retool around him, especially if Ware continues to flash the way that he has and he grows into this type of player. That could be a really nasty front court with him and Bam.
It really can, and just to see them win a game like this, it's like that's a good palate cleanser for the Heat.
Yeah, they needed it.
Feels like they needed it, especially against their crosstown or cross state rivals. I guess I don't know if they're rivals, Magic and Heat like that, but
like a proximity rivalry. We'll say it is. It is on our show.
The Magic have their own issues trying to create some offense. They got their stars back, and they're still trying to figure out how to generate some offense. So they lose another one. That's something to definitely watch. We talked about the Magic a lot on the East Squad show today, so that'll be in every team in the East feed as well as the Locked On NBA feed. Coming up, maybe the biggest upset of the night: the Bulls over the Nuggets. Locked On Nuggets is crashing out over there. Let's talk about that and more coming up. Today's episode of Locked On NBA Game Night is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel Sportsbook has all kinds of props and odds, things that you can use to get in on the action. Make Super Bowl 59 more exciting. One game, two teams, endless possibilities. I love that tag, FanDuel. I'm a fan of it. And there's no better way to do that with FanDuel. Go check it out. See what's available for the NFL. The Chiefs, a 1.5-point favorite against the Eagles. There are also all kinds of props and stuff that you can do. MVP odds: Mahomes plus 110, Saquon Barkley plus 280, Jalen Hurts plus 370, Travis Kelce plus 1800, Xavier Worthy, who had that fake catch in that last one, plus 3000. There's all kinds of ones you can do, so go check it out. And right now, if you put down $5, you win. You get $200 in bonus bets that you can use on anything else. That's FanDuel.com. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. See what you can do today. Bet with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL, official partner of Super Bowl 59. Thanks for hanging out with us on Locked On NBA Game Night. We've got a show that covers every single team in the NBA. Check the link in the description to find that show for your favorite team and all that. If your favorite team is the Denver Nuggets, you probably had a bad night tonight. They lose to the Chicago Bulls, a tough one for them. Let's hear first from the Bulls side. My former co-host on this show, he's back. Pat the designer. Let's hear from him.
The Chicago Bulls down the Denver Nuggets in a surprise win tonight, although the Bulls usually do play Denver really well. But the difference is tonight, Nikola Jokic able to get off versus Nikola Vucevic. Usually a tough matchup for each other. They play each other really well. Tonight was led by Zach LaVine, dominating as always, scoring with ease. But the real story is the bench mob. The Chicago Bulls bench really did everything that they could to put this team over the top. Now being led by Patrick Williams, who had a position change. This is major because in the starting lineup, he just hasn't been able to get it going. And yet today, it seemed like everything started to come together for P. Will. He was seeing the floor better. Maybe it's just the position change, the ability to kind of have more control coming off of the bench. I don't know what it was, but it's exactly what we need to see out of P. Will. And winning big games like this are the reason why you may see more of it. We're going to talk about that and Ayo Dosunmu all over on Locked On Bulls. So tap in with me and Hayes, C-Red Nation. Stand up.
I feel like Pat was going to try to give me a record deal the way that he was. Those glasses, those tinted glasses. I love that he's talking about Patrick Williams, and it's such a big change. He scored 11 points with 8 rebounds off the bench. If that's a good sign for your top, what is he, a top 5, top 10 pick? Yikes. He's
beyond that now. No one is looking at him anymore based on where he was drafted. And now it's what can you do? It's like the Janet Jackson song. What have you done for me lately? Yeah. And for P. Will, it hasn't been much, but this bench role seems like it might be invigorating for him. And him coming off the bench, being the leader of their bench mob, the bench really won this game for the Bulls. They outscored the Nuggets bench 41-10 in this one.
Oof. Yeah, they went on a very huge run from the middle of the third quarter to the middle of the fourth quarter, 30-8, and it was all the bench. Zach LaVine played 53 seconds in that run right there. Dalen Terry and Ayo Dosunmu had 2 threes each. Jokic scored all 8 points in that Nuggets run. The rest of the Nuggets went 0 for 8, and that run basically sealed them the game because the Nuggets never recovered from it. Locked On Nuggets, Swipa is kind of crashing out on Twitter right now. He said Michael Malone is he posted a video of Michael Malone post-game and said, Michael Malone is telling you what I've said for months. The Nuggets are not good enough defensively at the guard and wing spot consistently. And then he hosted a video that said, are the Nuggets a second-round exit in waiting? I guess we'll do a little early.
They could be. They could be because this Nuggets team has, to see them get outgunned from 3 the way that they did in this game, it was strange to see just the defensive, the lack of intensity, the lack of urgency. The switches were late. It just seemed like they weren't interested in playing defense in this game. And the Bulls got a lot of easy looks from 3 and they cashed them. So if that's the type of effort that you're going to get from the Nuggets, that's not going to be good enough.
They've been doing this thing with Aaron Gordon off the bench, with him coming back from that calf injury. We talked about it. I talked about it this weekend with Jake Madison, and he only had 6 points off the bench, 22 minutes. Like, I feel like they need more from him at that spot if they're not going to be good enough, like Swipa said, at the wing or at the guard spot. And yeah, I'm just watching that again. Jamal Murray 8 for 20 game in this one. I'm watching the Nuggets. A second round exit. Like, I don't know. I'm gonna give Jokic the benefit of the doubt. And we did, in the West Squad show today, we were talking about who's a fraudulent team, who's a sleeper team, and like I don't think anybody believes in any of the teams in the West. Even the Thunder have their doubters out there. So Nuggets definitely a team to watch. Another team to kind of watch is the Phoenix Suns. They get a win against the Clippers. This is a good win for them. Let's hear from Ben Garcia of Locked On Suns.
Suns get a much needed victory and what is probably their best win in maybe a couple of months. Benjamin Garcia, Locked On Phoenix Suns. You know the drill. There's a lot of things to get to. This wasn't necessarily a super efficient night from one Devin Booker and Kevin Durant, the Phoenix Suns stars, some might say, but it was tough shots down the stretch and free throws from Bradley Beal, big shots from Kevin Durant. But even though those two guys, Booker and Durant, didn't play necessarily elite tonight, it was the role players who came into effect. Grayson Allen hit some timely threes. Tyus Jones came out guns a-blazing in the first quarter. And against a Clippers team who, let's just call it what it is, are overachieving this year, this is one of the Suns' best wins and a promising sign for a potential things to come and a turning of a corner.
I love the ones in arena where it just sounds like they're in the club. Like, just like everybody hands go up. Like, man. This was a game where the Suns went on a couple of good runs. They went on a 13-4 run in the fourth quarter, and then the Clippers went on a 16-4 run to respond to that one, and the Suns just held on. But do you believe what Ben said about this being a turning point for the Suns? The Suns, I was surprised. I had to look this number up. I saw a Suns fan tweet it, and then I had to go check it out myself. So I literally went to the box scores and had to check. They're 22-8 with Booker and KD when they're both healthy and they both play.
Yeah, and that's been a problem for them. When KD went out early in the season, that's when you started to see them lose some of those games. But I think that they're already in that turning point for their season. I think the real crux in that was when Bud was like, hey, we're going to bench Beal, we're going to bench Nurkic, and we're going to go forward from here. Because, like, you look at it, the Suns have won 9 of their last 12 games at this point now, and they're starting to click. As long as they're healthy and KD is there looking like KD, they're going to have a shot.
It's wild how much vibes really matter. The Mavericks 2 years ago or 3 years ago were a great example when they traded Porzingis and got Spencer Dinwiddie and Davis Bertans back. You'd look at that trade now, even especially now, and go, that's an insane trade. But the Mavs won that trade because the vibes got so much better, and they went to the Western Conference Finals and went on that run because of it. Like, the vibes matter on some of these teams because it is a team sport. Teammates can make you better, and it could be a compounding thing to make you better or a compounding thing to make you worse. And do they want to bring Jimmy Butler into that? Is that something that they want to do right now? I don't know about that. Your Milwaukee Bucks, your Milwaukee Bucks get a win tonight against the Utah Jazz. What did you see from the Bucks and the Jazz tonight?
Saw Chris Middleton bouncing back. He had a stinker against the Clippers. No points, 1 assist, 4 fouls. Came back tonight, 22 points. Much better efficiency from the field. Pair that with the Giannis and Dame pairing combining for 70 points. Ooh. It was easy money for the Bucks tonight.
It's always easy money against the Jazz. That team is a rough watch.
Yeah, like the Bucks needed it though, because again, they had that game against the Clippers and it slipped for them in the fourth quarter. So to see them respond against the Jazz is what you wanted to see, especially first time of back-to-back. The only thing I wish that they could have taken care of business a little bit earlier. The Jazz went on a little run in the fourth quarter. I would have loved to see those starters sit earlier, knowing that they play again tomorrow against the Blazers.
You're missing that MVP Giannis season where he was sitting all those fourth quarters and averaging like 29 minutes a game.
Loved it. That
was a great season. The only worse watch than the Jazz is the Washington Wizards, who I saw in person today, that are just... That's barely an NBA team. I was trying to figure out if their best player is Poole or Kuzma, and that conversation made me sad. And then I started to think, would either of them crack the top 7 on the Celtics rotation right now? And I didn't think either of them. So. I don't think either of them would. I think Pritchard's playing better and all that. But from the Mavericks point of view, this was a Klay Thompson game from the beginning. The talk around the Mavericks last couple of days has been Klay Thompson's touches. He played the last 2 games that the Mavericks have played against the Celtics and the Hornets, and he got like 58 touches, not even a touch a minute the last 2 games combined, and they just haven't figured out a way to play him. They've been playing him with Luka Doncic the whole beginning of the season. His minutes were completely, almost 100% tied to playing with Luka. Then when Luka goes out with this calf injury, they haven't been able to figure out how to play with Klay. And so that's been a big topic of conversation. It was one of the main topics on our show the day before this game, and we proved Jason Kidd listens to the show, because coming out of the gate, Klay Thompson, 7 of 11 from the field, 7 of 10 from 3, 21 points in that first quarter. They were finding him all over the place, setting pin downs for him, setting screens for him all over the place. And there was only 2 plays where Wizard went under a screen for Klay Thompson, which, by the way, why would you ever go under a screen for Klay Thompson? Right. But it wasn't just terrible Wizards defense. It was very specific Mavericks trying to get Klay Thompson involved. And I think that's a really good thing for the Mavs, because Klay Thompson, they don't need him to be the Klay of the 2018 Warriors or 2017 Warriors finals teams or anything like that. They need a couple of quarters of magic. And this was a quarter to prove, hey, I still got that every once in a while. I can give you 7 threes in a quarter, which ties the Mavs record for most threes in a quarter. Luka had one against the Clippers, had 7 a couple years ago. So Mavs get a win. Another palate cleanser for them. They cruised to this one, got up to a 40-point lead, and kept this one. So good one for the Mavericks. And it's all about Klay Thompson. And that one coming up, they didn't play Kevin Huerter for the Kings. And I really want to know why. We'll do it and count it up, where we count out the most interesting, fun things in the NBA. We'll do that and more coming up.
Big chicken, baby. Zion Williamson and porn star.
Take that for that.
Count it up. Count it up. Count it up. Count it up. Count it up.
The Kings get a win against the Brooklyn Nets, which is not like a great thing necessarily, which happens now because the Nets are decided they don't want to play real basketball anymore. But Kevin Huerter did not play. DNP coach's decision in this one. There are rumors of John Collins or Cam Johnson, that the Kings are really going for somebody. So for them to sit somebody like this, I am doing the Windhorse fingers. Now, why would they do that? My question is, would either of John Collins or Cam Johnson change the trajectory of the Kings for you if this ended up being a trade? Because it really does seem like it's going to be a trade.
I think Cam Johnson moves the needle more than Collins. Although the Kings are a little bit of a smaller team, so having another big would be helpful for him. But if they're going to lean into just being a smaller team and small ball, having a versatile forward like Cam Johnson would do them some good, especially another forward that can come and play some defense in addition to giving them some scoring punch.
Cam Johnson will put them back. They're 9th in offense in the NBA. It would put them back to where they were a couple years ago, back in the top, 3, 4 in the NBA. That would help them find their identity again, but we thought that DeRozan would help them do that, and that hasn't necessarily happened with this. John Collins, I'm interested in him. I was talking to Matt George about him after we did our West Squad show, and I'm interested to see him on a playoff team again, because I think he could be a piece that's solid, comes in, gives them some size, gives them some versatility. He doesn't fix their issues, but at least he shores up some of the problems that they've had, and just not having size, not having some versatility, some more shooting, all that kind of stuff. But I don't think either of them change the trajectory. I think they're a first round exit, or making the playoffs in general. I just think either of them makes them that.
First round exit for the King. I mean, how they playing with Doug Christie?
They're 10th right now.
I mean, but it's all bundled in the standings at that point.
They would play the Dallas Mavericks in the play-in in the first game.
Oof. Okay. Well,
or the Mavs rise up after the injuries come back, and they play either the Timberwolves or the Suns.
See, that's what I'm saying. It's just all mushed up in that part of the West right now. It's crazy.
It's too tough. It's too tough, and that's why they don't. That's why neither of those players would change their trajectory. It would make them. I think both of them would obviously make them better, but I don't think it changes the trajectory.
I think that's fair.
Team that has changed their trajectory, the Detroit Pistons, they were on their way up. There was the darling, the Monday night Pistons, but they lose to the Cavs. Let's hear from Danny Cunningham of Locked On Cavs.
Danny Cunningham here at Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse after the Cavs beat the Detroit Pistons 110-91. Let's talk about this one for 94 feet. The Cavs have played better offensive games. This was one of the worst shooting games that they've had so far this season, but they won this game because they played great defensively, something I've not said very much lately. in the month of January. They entered this game on Monday night 28th in the NBA in defensive rating, but they were excellent on Monday night. They held Detroit to a season low 91 points. It's the second fewest points in a game a Cavs opponent has had so far this season. So it was really good to see them get back to what they want to say is their identity on that side of the floor. I thought it started with Max Strus. I thought he did a great job on Cade Cunningham. Cade, of course, is an all-star caliber player, somebody I think will be named to the all-star team later this week, but I don't think he was very efficient tonight, and I thought Max Strus had a lot to do with that. Now, it's all about how is this going to move forward? How is this going to carry over? The Cavs are in Miami on Wednesday. We'll see if they can defend at a high level again. If so, we could see this team start to break out of the slump they've been in the month of.
We talked a lot about the Cavs on the East Squad show, so go listen to that show and for more on their talk, especially Danny being upset about their defense, even though they're a really great team. Let's hear from Kuka Hill on Locked On Pistons.
Detroit Pistons are going to fall here to the Cleveland Cavaliers. Host of Locked On Pistons podcast, Kuka Hill here. I'm actually recording this before the game has actually ended, but the Pistons are nearly down by 30 at this point with 44 minutes left in the game, so there's no need to continue to watch the rest of this game. I will say this, the Pistons are going against one of the best teams, if not the best team in the NBA, in the Cleveland Cavaliers. They are a bad matchup for the Pistons with Evan Mobley and Jared Allen. The Pistons also had their lack of secondary creation exposed yet again in a game against a good team. As I've said numerous times, I'm worried that as you play more good teams, that only having Cade as a creation option is going to be sustainable. I think you're starting to see that wear off a bit. Cade had a really bad game, shot poorly from the floor, but when he has a bad game like this, the Pistons just don't have anyone else that could contribute or create for anybody, and it gets exposed in games like this. So great team they lost to, no harm in that, but lack of secondary creation continues to get exposed, man.
We talked about the Pistons a lot on the squad show as well today, but my question for this one is,
Count it up.
do the Pistons need to make another move for a creator, like who said?
If they are trying to have playoff success this year, they absolutely do. Because on a night like tonight where Cade doesn't have it, there was no one else who can go and get you a bucket. Like you could argue if Ivy was healthy, maybe they'd have another option, but right now they don't have enough. Like Marcus Sasser, that's not going to cut it. They need to make a move if they're really trying to do something in the playoffs this year.
That's the thing right there is what do they want to do? And they were in a spot, I think who even said this on the squad show, they were in a spot a month ago maybe where they should maybe try and keep their pick, and maybe they're like, all right, we'll take our lumps with not having playmaking and do that. But now you're in it. Go ahead, go get somebody. Like go see who you can get. And you even with Jaden Ivey, they would need somebody else like that too, I think, because you brought in Tobias Harris, you brought in Malik Beasley, Tim Hardaway Jr. None of those guys are playmakers. They're all just shooters, spot up shooters, and all that. So yeah, I think I'm with you with the Pistons. I like seeing the Pistons win, and it was sad to see Koo go back to his state of like, I'm gonna record this before the end because I know what it's gonna be like at the end.
Man, we haven't had much of those though this season, so like that's progress for the Pistons.
A team whose outcome was very clear in the third quarter and then in the fourth when they got up to a 40-point lead. The Knicks get a win. Let's hear from Alex Wolf of Locked On Knicks.
There's a lot of big stats you could zero in on after the Knicks 143-106 drubbing of the Grizzlies. How about 20 steals? Not half bad. How about 7 blocks? Pretty good number there. But, you could do a little better. How about 52 bench points, a season high for the Knicks? But I think the biggest number that you can zero in on to tell you just how much of a tear the Knicks are on their last 2 games, first time since 1965 that they have scored over 140 points in 2 straight games. Anytime you got to go past the 1970 title team, the team is doing something really special and really out of the ordinary.
20 steals is absolutely wild. That's
nuts.
That's a huge stat. 140 points for the Knicks, too. Good win for them over the Grizzlies. The Wolves got a win, but Ben Beacon of Locked On Wolves doesn't think it was a good win for them. Let's hear why.
The Minnesota Timberwolves beat the Atlanta Hawks by 8 on Monday night and moved to 4 games above 500 for the first time this season, and yet it still felt like a loss. I'm Ben Beacon, host of the daily Locked On Wolves podcast, and this was about as bad of an 8-point win as you can have. Atlanta only had 1 starter playing in this game, in Onyeka Okongwu. They were down. I can't list every player the Hawks are missing because this video is only supposed to be 1 minute, and I would run out of time. But obviously no Trae Young, no Bogdanovich. Like like you name a Hawks player that besides Onyeka Okongwu, he didn't play in this game, and the Timberwolves nearly kicked it away. They were up double figures at halftime, up 16 at halftime, but only scored 20 points in the third quarter and just absolutely limped to the finish line, and they needed the final minute to do it. DeAndre Hunter had 35 off the bench for the Atlanta Hawks. Ant had 23, but did not play well. Julius Randle had 20. Same story there. The Wolves just barely squeaked this one out. Subscribe to Locked On Wolves for all.
Tough one for the Wolves. My question on this one is, scale of 0 to 5, how worried are you about the Wolves season?
I'd say like a 3.5. I had concerns about this Wolves team already going into the year. I don't know if there's such thing as a bad win, but there's ugly ones, and this was a really ugly one for the Wolves. I just don't know if they have enough to really contend this year after the moves they made in the offseason.
I'm a 4 with them because they made the West Finals last year. They got beat 5-1 to the Mavericks. It was a bad matchup for them, but they beat the Nuggets. It was a promising looking team. We were saying, the Timberwolves are on the rise. Then they make this trade, and I just don't think they're gonna reach the same heights. This is the thing. This is another thing on the West squad shows that I just feel like nobody believes in any of the West teams. They all have these huge weaknesses, and it's just gonna be down to who has the best matchup in each first round. So I don't know which teams the Timberwolves have good matchups with anymore, and that's something that got taken away with that Cat trade for Randall, and so that's definitely something that I'm watching right there. The Lakers get a win against the Charlotte Hornets. LaMelo Ball goes down with another injury. Tough for them in Locked On Hornets, but let's hear from Andy Kamenetsky of Locked On Lakers.
Co-host of the Locked On Lakers podcast, and the Lakers eke out a 112-107 win over the Charlotte Hornets. They led by 20 points after the first quarter and then were outscored 88-73 over the following three quarters. Despite LaMelo Ball leaving the game with an ankle sprain, the Lakers turned the ball over a total of 19 times, gave up 28 points in the process, and shot 21% from behind the arc. LeBron James, Austin Reeves, a combined 3 of 16 from distance. The Lakers were largely bailed out by Anthony Davis, who put up 42 points, 23 rebounds, 8 of 10 from the line, plus 2 blocks. AD should get the game ball, and then he should burn it. For more Lakers coverage, make sure you are watching Locked On Lakers on YouTube and listening wherever you get your podcast.
Another win where the host wasn't satisfied with it, but Sean Woodley of Locked On Raptors is satisfied with his win of the Raptors. Let's hear from Sean.
6 wins in 7 games. The Toronto Raptors are hot, baby. Sean Woodley here. Quick thoughts on the Raptors taking down the Pelicans 113-104 in a game that once again was done on the back of the Raptors defense, which has made a remarkable turnaround over the last couple weeks. This was, coming into tonight, the 27th ranked defense in basketball. But over the 7-game stretch they've gone over the last couple weeks here, they are the number 2 defense in the NBA, and they've been fantastic. Scotty Barnes is playing at an all-defense level right now. Head coach Darko Rajakovic before this game was singing the praises of Barnes and his all-defense candidacy, which, aside from the Raptors' record, is kind of ironclad. He's been unbelievable. Jakob Poeltl was fantastic in this one. He had 3 blocks as well, and the Raptors shut down the Pelicans to the tune of just 40 points in the first half. Bit of a let-up in the third, but overall, this Raptors team, their offense ain't super pretty all the time. There have been some kind of wonky shooting nights, even for Scotty Barnes, but for the most part, this team is winning because defense is king, and that's awesome for a team that really wasn't playing a lick of it for most of the season.
Raptors 6-1 in their last 7. They were a 1-16 before in the stretch before that. Huge turnaround for them. And that's the last game of the night. Thanks for hanging out with us on Locked On NBA Game Night. For Camille Davis of Locked On Bucks, I'm Nick Angstadt of Locked On Mavs. Great stuff all the time on every single Locked On NBA show. Go check them out. The link in the description and everywhere you get your podcast. Thanks so much for listening to Locked On NBA Game Night.